Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, and thanks for joining us in the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. It's Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and today I'm joined by Karaleigh Garrison. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us all about who you are and why you do what you do.
So I am so many things. My podcast is called the Multipassionate Mama Podcast because I have so many things that I am very passionate about. I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm a personal transformation coach. I'm a speaker, and on and on. I also teach makeup for theater at the college. I do a lot of different things.
How did you get doing all these things? And then when you were little, was that a path for you that you're like, I love all of this, and here's what I'm doing? Like, how did you evolve to the person you are today?
Pretty much. I was always singing and writing songs. I always knew that I was meant to be on stages. I was, writing plays and speaking to people, but I was also like sneaking off and making things in my closet with my hot glue gun and like doing my makeup all the time and doing my hair and putting glitter everywhere. So I was always doing everything.
Gotta say, with glitter never goes away.
Yes, it's true.
I'm finding glitter from years ago still. I'm like,
Yes,
cool,
both
more glitter.
literally and figuratively.
So true. It makes me laugh. So one thing we talk about here on this podcast, obviously, is money memories. So money memory would be, definable as something that happened when you were, a younger person, child, teenager, that really helped mold your relationship to money as an adult to where you are now. What's a money memory that you're open to sharing?
Oh, yeah. So this summer, I was able to do a course on inner child work. And the reason I took that course was because I had this realization that I didn't have any memories from before I was like 14. And it was a really deep dive into like what made me me and how like, where are all these memories? Why are they all gone? And it turned out I had a lot of things that I had just forgotten about. And there was a lot of stuff that was buried. So one of those memories that came up when I was deep diving into myself over the summer was that, and it might have been a teenage memory because I'm still digging up a lot of these memories, was when I loved clothes. I've always loved clothes. I started sewing my own clothes when I was 11, I think. And I didn't we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up. So my desire for clothes um, transformed into me making clothes with whatever fabric people were giving me, which was often really interesting. But that memory was we didn't have money for clothes shopping. So we went to my grandmother lived a few hours away and ran a donation site for clothing, and it was a big warehouse that people just literally just threw clothes into. And so for our like back to school clothing shopping, we rummaged through a spider infested, just not like on tables, not like organized, just like piles of clothes to find like our back to school clothes that year.
Wow, that's super interesting. How do you feel like that memory is still serving you and where you're at now? Because obviously there's some financial ties to that behind the scenes, even though it's tangible clothing for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because clothing is a huge part. I mean, I love clothing. I love, looking nice. And it's a huge part of your confidence in the way that you show up and dress. Like I'm very, very interested in the way that we show up in the world and our energy and like how that dynamic of the way we look, influences our appearance and our confidence and all of that. Um, I was doing a meditation this morning as I realized that kind of poverty mindset had become part of my identity. And over the last decade, I have 3 kids with special needs. My husband's been disabled for a decade. That had really become part of my identity. And we've been kind of working really hard to get off of welfare over the last few years as my husband has been recovering from being disabled, basically. And as I've been his caretaker and our kids' caretaker, and they've become old enough that I can work a little bit, and it's been an interesting journey. I was doing this meditation this morning where it was really, really beautiful. And it was, imagining these boxes that were tied to your ankles. And they represented like something really heavy that was part of you that didn't need to be. And mine was this identity of poverty. And it was like, that doesn't need to be who I am anymore. I can sever that rope. I can get rid of that. And it doesn't need to be who I am anymore. And it was
That's
really
huge.
beautiful to like watch that dissolve. And I'm sure that it's going to take more than just like this one really beautiful meditation to like fully get rid of that. Because when something has been so much of who you are for so long, it takes time to kind of get rid of that from all of you. But the first step is awareness and recognizing that it is so much part of who you think you are. You have to be aware that you're seeing it as who you are first, and then allow it to not be who you are anymore. So,
No, thank you for sharing. I mean, thank you for being raw and vulnerable and sharing that, because I feel like the self-realization is such a big, impactful thing, right? And for some people, maybe their money memory serves them to move forward and it fits in alignment with where they're at. For a lot of folks, from what I've seen just from my experience, even my own personal, um, it makes sense to like fit it in alignment with where you want to be and what your goals are and who you want to become and what your relationship to money looks like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be it's not about a number. It's not about how much money is in the bank, who you are, right? Who you that poverty identity is not about facts, quote unquote, right? It's not about, enoughness, like as far as a number goes. Enoughness just is. Like I just am worthy, and that's something I've been working on in a
Yes.
greater capacity for a while now, and realizing that tying my identity to poverty was part of me feeling like I wasn't enough was really eye-opening.
That goes back to when you and I chatted before, feeling worthy, right? Having that self-realization of knowing that you deserve a seat at the table, regardless of where you're at in your journey. Um, it- and so many people are obviously in different places with where they're coming from. You brought up a good point about having a number. And you see this from commercials and literature out there. Well, you have to have X to retire comfortably. You have to have this big number or whatever that is. That is not true. I mean, truly, because it depends on you, your situation, what your expenses are, what your needs are. Everyone's going to look so different. So to tie your worthiness specifically to a specific number that you allege you have to be able to retire, that's not always the case. I mean, yes, do you want to plan? And yes, do you want to save for retirement? Of course. But it needs to be personalized for you. And there needs to be that kind of aha moment, which it sounds like you had a huge one this morning. So thank you for sharing that. But that light bulb needs to go off saying, okay, great. Here's my goals. Here's what I want this to look like. And then how do we make this happen?
Yeah, and the problem with having that specific number of a goal is that as soon as you reach that, it always changes. It always goes up. And then you're like, oh, well, I'm still not good enough because I still haven't reached the new goal that I just declared 2 seconds ago. It's
Yes.
like it never seems to be actually enough because you keep changing your goal. So you just have to decide that wherever you're at, you're already worthy. You're already enough. And it was in our journey, it's been really fascinating because we went from $0 of income, completely reliant on welfare and social security and all of that because my husband was disabled and I was his caretaker and our 3 special needs kids caretaker. And I'm a singer-songwriter and I transmute my feelings and emotions and all that through music. So I wrote this song and it's called Precipice, and it was about feeling like I was standing on the edge of a cliff ready to jump off when we were
Mm.
at this point of him going, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling like I could apply for jobs and go back to work. And I was so scared. Like, I was like, I don't think we could survive you going back to work. I don't know how we could ever get off of welfare. That feels like a trap because then we're gonna lose that. And there's no way that you can go from not working for the last decade to making enough for our family of five to get by. How do we go? How do we go from that? How do we lose everything and you make enough money? Because I still have to care for them. Like, we have a severely autistic 13-year-old who's also type 1 diabetic. Like, I have to be there. Like, I can't, like, it doesn't work. Like, I'm also an entrepreneur, so I do that as well. But it's like, it doesn't, I was so scared when we were making that decision of whether or not he should try to apply for jobs and go back to work. And he wasn't even sure if he could physically handle it because actually, technically, he's still, according to the government, disabled. But it was a huge emotional, like, leap to try to jump out of that. And here we are several years later going, okay, we're not where we want to be. We're not totally amazing. We don't have years and years of, backup in the bank, right? We don't have a lot of savings, right? But to look at where we are and go, oh, well, we're not where we want to be, so we must not be good enough is not an accurate picture of the whole situation. We have to actually look at where we've been and go, we survived it. We survived the thing that I was so afraid of, the thing I never thought we were going to make it through. And it didn't look like one big leap like I thought it would. It looked like, okay, we lost that one. Okay, we lost food stamps. Okay, we lost Medicare. Okay, we lost that piece. Okay, we lost that thing. We made it through each one of those. And it was so scary. And we needed help sometimes. And we did it.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth Podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. We, both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717-0001.
And now, back to the podcast.
We're still here. We're doing okay. Thank you for sharing all of that. I would love to have you on and revisit this in a couple of years from now and see where you're at again. Because I think that is, first off, amazing that you've navigated through everything, truly. But you're on your path, right? Which is so neat. Because where are you going to be in the next 2 years, the next 5 years? Like, what's that going to look like for you? And people you're helping along the way of having this conversation and being open to, think of how many ripples you're creating for people who maybe are, a few years back on your path or navigating through and feeling hopelessness and not worthy. Thank you for sharing. But you asked me, before we started if I would share money infidelities. And what that was for me was taking classes that I couldn't afford and that my husband wasn't ready to take the leap on, that I knew that I needed in order to start, feeling worthy to, like, step into my power and start doing all these things that I'm doing and to, like, really own my worth and to start becoming the person that I'm supposed to be. And if the thing is if you stay the same, then you're going to stay the same. You have to take some risks sometimes in order to become better. And I needed to do that. And I knew that I needed to do that. And sometimes we're just not on the same level. And so there's such an interesting dynamic where it's like, in some ways, I kind of regret some things, but in other ways I totally don't, because I can see the ways that I really needed to up level, and I can see how much better I am because of it.
Have you discussed that since that point? Is he aware of it yet, if you don't mind me asking?
No.
Okay.
No, and we will get there, and we're getting
Yeah.
there. And part of that is disability based, is we're working through emotional and mental disabilities still. That we'll get there. We'll get there. And we're just kind of leveling out in some aspects through his mental health journey that you one of my we've talked about like superpowers and understanding where you're really gifted and how knowing yourself is like the most important thing that you can do. And as I've come to know myself better through this, one of the things that I'm really gifted at is seeing where people are at and seeing when timing is good and when timing is not good. And my favorite quote comes from Frozen, and that's like, people make bad choices when they're mad or scared or stressed. And I've been able to see that through our journey together as a couple of overreactions and, money mindset things of that scarcity mindset, that poverty mindset will create reactions in us that are not good. And when those are still happening and we don't feel safe, like on a very regular basis, it's hard to leap out of that. It's hard to start feeling safe when you don't feel safe, right? You have to learn how to feel safe in your own body, no matter what external circumstances look like, before those external circumstances can start showing up. And you have to regulate your own nervous system first before you can start helping other people. Hopefully that was making any sense. So I'm
Yeah.
working on me first before I can kind of help him up level, and then we'll start having conversations when we're ready.
You brought up several good points. I think that first off, I think everyone's a work in progress, right? We're always up leveling ourselves, hopefully, and trying to, do better and move forward. But it's all about putting your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah.
You have to put that on, when you're on a plane, they say that. And there's a huge psychology behind that as well. Like, you put your oxygen mask on first so you can breathe air, so then you can help others. Because if you're not helping yourself on your journey, how are you going to help others when you're struggling yourself?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for, again, sharing. As we start to wrap the conversation, one thing I like to ask is, what are tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money differently in your own household?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think money is something we are still really figuring out how to be safe around and how to be comfortable around. Um, and I think safety is really what it comes back to, and like understanding that like everything's okay. Like, we're gonna be okay, and calm. When you can be calm around money instead of panicked around money, it changes the whole like vibe and tone of your home. And it really is, it makes a world of difference to to feel safe no matter what number is happening in the bank account, to feel safe no matter what. And to that can be helped by going, okay, what's the worst case scenario and can I handle that? Okay, I think I could handle that. I had this really amazing, I got to go on a retreat, which was amazing because it was the first time I had ever left my kids, and my kids are now 10, 13, and 14. So it was like last fall. So they were already about this age. And I had left my kids for the first time in their whole lives. Like, I had never taken a vacation ever. And I got to go on this retreat. And part of our retreat was we had this financial discussion where it was like, okay, if the worst thing in the world happens and you lose all of your money, and what would you do? Here's what you would do. You would rely on everyone else in this group because we've been in this mastermind together and now you're like family. So if the worst thing happens and you lose all of your money, everyone else in the room, raise your hand if you'd be willing to host each other for a month. And every single person in that room raised their hands. And it was like we automatically we had a backup plan. And what was interesting was for me that I immediately started sobbing, and it was like this whole like emotional roller coaster for me because and what was funny was I couldn't hide it because I'm this very bubbly, sunshiny, like naturally just sun shines out of my face like naturally, especially when I'm like just me. And as soon as we had this experiment and this whole situation, we did this thing, my whole face fell, and I was like silently crying in the corner, and everybody noticed, even though I was trying really hard to hide it. And it wasn't for the obvious reason. It actually was not about money. It was about the idea of anybody hosting my 3 special needs kids and my family, and the idea of the burden of my family on other people. And as soon as we gathered back around, because we had a break for about 5 minutes, and then we gathered back around together, and I had tried to like calm all my tears down, and it didn't work. And our amazing like leader of our retreat pointed it out, and he was like, "All right, we've got to point out the elephant in the room. Karaleigh, what is going on?" And I explained what was going on, and I was surrounded by a group of people hugging me and loving me, going, if we can't handle your kids, we will just pay for you to live somewhere. Like, we love you so much, and just like we will make sure you're taken care of. And just the point is that like we're more supported than we think we are, always. Like, whatever the worst case scenario is, you can handle it. And when you know that you're safe, even in the worst case scenario, then it doesn't matter what is coming. You're safe. And when you know you're safe, that's when abundance can flow in, and that's when everything else is okay. It starts from the inside out. You have to know that you can be safe first.
That's beautiful. And your oxygen mask is on first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you again for being so open and sharing your heart today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And hopefully those of you listening or watching will join us on the next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.